Hi, I'm Adam Brooks Weber, and this is another missive from the Merry Mystic. I'm glad you're here. Today, I'm bringing together some blessings and making them into bread. We're starting with water, which is an amazing blessing all by itself. Water brings us blessings from the depths of time. It's made up of hydrogen, which is the most abundant element in the universe, and oxygen, which is forged in ancient stars, long ago dust, creating the stardust from which we're all made. The water that we see on Earth, almost all of it has been here since the beginning of this planet. It's ancient water, brings us blessings from the depths of time. I'm going to take that water and put in a little yeast. Yeast is another ancient thing, an early life form. There were these single-celled yeast organisms here on Earth long before there were any sentient beings to reflect on them. The yeast is dormant in the packet, but I pour it into warm water and it wakes up and discovers that it's hungry. I'm going to give it a little sugar to nosh on, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon, just to give it something to warm up on. And we're going to give it a couple of minutes here so that it can show us it's alive before we ask it to help us make bread. So we're back after about 5 minutes. I see that the yeast has got foamy on the top, proving to us that it's alive. That's a good way to start. Next, I'm going to take some more blessings and mix them all together. Let's start with 3½ cups of flour. I'm going to scoop and level it to measure it. 1, 2, 3 and 1/2. And of course, when this flour, we have a rich source of blessings. Flour comes from wheat, and all these stalks of wheat were growing under the sun. They had sweet rains falling on them. They had gentle breezes. They had the good earth underneath them. And after they grew, they had the labor of people who farmed them and harvested them, processed them into flour. So the flour itself is already a complex web of blessings, and I'm adding that to my mix. I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of salt. I don't even know where to begin talking about salt, a simple element without which our life would be impossible. Sodium chloride, the unifying factor, the salt in our bloodstreams and the salt in the oceans from which life arose on Earth. What else? I need 2 tablespoons of butter. Now here in my my not-so-gleaming kitchen, somewhere there's probably a pastry knife, but I couldn't find it, so I grated some butter out of the freezer, and I'm just going to put that in. 2 tablespoons. And now we have some liquids. I have my yeast. I have this, which is 1/2 cup of milk and 1/3 of a cup of water and 1 egg. And I'm just going to put them both in here. And I'll mix it all together. So I'm taking all of these blessings, water, yeast, sugar, flour, butter, milk, salt. All these blessings come together. And then there's a strange thing that happens, because this is more or less the same way that you make paste. But we're not going to make paste. Actually, we're making bread. So I mix it all up. I don't have a food processor, so Just doing it the old-fashioned way. And there's a beautiful dough starting to form. Yes. But now we're going to let the dough rest for another maybe 5 minutes before I start kneading it. And we're back. We left our dough 5 minutes to rest. Lets the flour absorb some of the liquids so that it won't be too gluey. And it's not going to end up being paste at all. It's going to end up being bread. So now I'm getting it out of my mixing bowl, my floury hands, and I'm going to turn it out on this nice clean countertop to knead it. This is the fun part, the tactile part. Here it goes. And at first it's sort of sticky, so we might work a little more flour into it as we go. All I'm going to do is press on it, fold it over, and give it a quarter turn. Press, fold over, quarter of a turn. Press, fold over, quarter of a turn. If you're new at this, you can count. Maybe repeat this basic kneading step 50 times. After a while, though, you stop having to count. You can just tell by the feel, because the dough will get more elastic and less gluey feeling as you continue to knead it. So here what I'm doing is I'm taking all these blessings that we talked about before, the water, the flour, egg and butter, the wheat, all these things that bear many different blessings, and I'm working them together, and as I do it, I'm adding my own blessing. So I like to think of the people who will eat this food and bless them as I cook. Pray that this will give them nourishment and sustenance and strength and health and enjoyment. So I'm standing in the middle of a great web of blessings. The blessings that come to me in the ingredients, the little blessing that I add while I'm working them together, and the blessings that the people who eat this food will enjoy and then carry out into the world. Being a cook is really, basically, at bottom, it's the same thing as being a minister. You're transmitting God's blessings to people. This is still a little gluey, so I'm working in a little more flour as I go. After you've finished kneading the bread, I'm not going to do the whole thing here because we don't have time, but 50 repetitions or so, we're going to take this loaf, set it in a bowl which has been oiled. I put a little olive oil on the bowl to keep the dough from sticking to it. And I'll put it in a warm place, covered, to rise. Hard to say. I have trouble judging how long this will take, but an hour or two for it to rise to 1.5 times its original volume. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll be back after the dough has risen. So our bread has risen. I had it in a bowl in the oven under a oiled piece of cling film, and I let it go too long. It's been more than doubled its volume, but that's okay. It's very forgiving bread. So now my hands are clean again, and I'm going to flour them and punch it down. And we'll get the dough out. Nice and warm. And much more elastic. Now it's more like a separate organism and less like a pile of glue. So I'm going to give it just one or two more kneadings just to redistribute the yeast properly. Fold it over a couple of times. What I'm making today is cloverleaf rolls. So I'm going to take this lovely dough and cut it and form it into little balls. About that size. Whoops. About that size. And I'm going to put 3 of them in each cup of a cupcake pan. There we go. So about that much in each cup. And then I'm going to give them another chance to rise. But now I'm going to go ahead and cut up the dough and fill all of these. Now I'm just going to employ one of my superpowers. Nobody but the cat is watching. When you get to be an ordained minister, you can do these things, you know. And there they are, all set in their pans and ready to rise again. I've covered them with oiled cling film, and I oiled the pans in advance. So I'm going to set them aside until they rise again, about double before we put them in the oven to cook. So here we are after another about 45 minutes. The rolls have been rising. You can see they've risen up out of the pans quite a bit. Now comes the secret ingredient. In fact, it's the whole secret of life, which of course is butter. I have a little basting brush. I guess it could be an aspergillium. I could asperge them, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm just going to brush them all with butter before we put them in the oven. Secret of life right there. Plenty of butter. And I'm thinking back on all the blessings that went into making this food. All those blessings are about to come together to make bread, to make a gift for my family, which will be nutritious and pleasurable and sustaining. So good. Okay. There they all are. I've preheated my oven, 375, and I'm going to cook these rolls for about 15 minutes until they're browned on the top. And here we are with the finished product. Blessed cloverleaf rolls, just lightly browned on the top. They've been in there about 16 minutes. That seems to have done them. I won't torture you by eating one in front of you, but they're really good. So as I cooked these rolls, I thought about all the blessings that were coming through my hands, each ingredient bearing blessings to me. And I combined those blessings and I added my own by kneading prayerfully, by thinking about the people who were going to be enjoying these rolls. And so this very mundane daily task, making bread, becomes a spiritual exercise. And I think that's very important. Hard for me to remember sometimes because I'm a very wordy person. I create all kinds of stuff. I create books, and I write sermons, and I make missives for the Merry Mystic, and I write poetry, and I write hymns, and I write other kinds of music, and it's all very conceptual stuff, very wordy stuff. It's a lot of theology. I like wrestling with tough questions about the spiritual mysteries of life, about God and Jesus and good and evil and determinism and free will, and that's just who I am. I'm a wordy, theological sort of a guy. But it turns out that wordy part of my spirituality, it's not the whole thing. It's not even the most important thing. I think more important than that is the physical side, where ordinary, mundane physical activities become a spiritual exercise, a way of praying. When I make rolls, I'm praying. I'm praying with my hands. I'm praying with, maybe internally with some words, with my mind, but mostly I'm praying in a kind of kinetic way, visualizing myself as part of this web of blessings. I think if you have no interest in theology, you're fine. You can be a merry mystic without that part. But this part, this is the really important part. If you're watching this video anywhere but on adambrooksweber.com, please go over there and leave a comment. I would love to know whether you have daily activities, cooking, gardening, knitting, sewing, some other routine daily activity that for you becomes a spiritual practice. Please share it with everybody so we can grow our community that way. And please share this video with anyone you think might like it. Well, I wish I could send each one of you one of these rolls, but there are not enough to go around. So I'll have to make do with words. May God bless you. May you feel yourself centered in a great web of blessings. Bye now.